been a long time coming. How about you? Are you close?
17 grants.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Oh,
Penny.
no, I got 8 years.
Oh, wow.
10 years, 12, got 12 years to go.
I'm sorry, Chris.
No, it's okay.
Well, I liked mine generally too. That's not the point.
But not long.
Okay, it's 10 o'clock. Do we have everyone we're expecting?
We do.
Yes, in the room we have Commissioner Olson, Commissioner Scott, Solid Waste Budget Committee member Leanne Welch, Sean Blanchard, County Treasurer, Justin Weiss, Solid Waste Program Manager,
Yes, program
and
manager.
Chris Lady, Public Works Director. And Deb Garland.
Wonderful,
Thankfully running the meeting for us.
wonderful. So we don't have Ken Henson today, and how about Kevin?
Ken Henson will not be able to attend, but he did approve via SWAC meeting and chimed in via email that he would not be able to attend, but had previously approved. And Mr. Kevin Stoker, unfortunately, is at a training in Portland, so he will not be here. He did have a chance to review, said he might share some thoughts, but I did not receive any comments from him.
Okay, terrific. Well, let's convene this solid waste budget hearing at 10:01 a.m. And as the board chair, it is my job to open up the meeting and accept nominations for the solid waste budget committee chair. Do we have nominations for the chair?
You want me to nominate myself?
I was going to say,
Please.
Leanne is our wonderful, wonderful layperson who's here with us today that I would nominate as the
And I
chair.
will second that. That's where I was headed too.
Terrific. Okay, we have a nomination and a second. Do we have any further nominations or further discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. All right. Thank you, Leanne. You are our chair. We are grateful for your service, and I will turn over the meeting to you.
Okay, thank you very much. And I guess that we're going to turn this now to Justin to deliver the budget narrative and to deliver the budget. And before we do that, do you want questions during your presentation or wait till your presentation is done?
Let's do it as we move along. I like to
Okay.
kind of engage and talk about the topic while we're in
Okay,
the subject.
sounds
yes.
good.
Okay, thank you, Leanne. Again, thank you for being here. We appreciate you being chair and helping guide us through this budget committee hearing process. This is my first time going through the process. Mr. Lady, Public Works Director, has been a big help. Commissioner Olson, I appreciate you attending SWAC meetings and helping kind of navigate my first time moving through the budget. So it's been an eye-opening experience, but learned a lot and excited to get going on the next fiscal year and kind of see how things evolve as we move forward into the future with solid waste and recycling. So happy to be here today. So we'll start with the big picture, kind of reviewing as we started preparing for the fiscal year 24-25 budget. We looked back at where we've come from to kind of understand where we may be going. And so looking at tonnage, as I'm becoming more intimately knowledgeable of the budget, a lot of our revenue is tied to garbage disposal. So we collect garbage coming in, the haulers bring their garbage to the Tillamook transfer station, and they pay us a fee for us to haul that out of the county. So with COVID, we saw a big bump in terms of tonnages coming into the Tillamook really all to transfer stations, which Manzanita and Pacific City do get funneled to Tillamook and then hauled off to the landfill. So we saw in fiscal year 1920 about just under 29,000 tons of garbage come through the Tillamook transfer station. That was just when COVID was really starting to ramp up. And then the next fiscal year, 2021, we had about a 2,500 ton increase, so just over 32,000 tons. So that was an 11.5 increase in garbage from the previous fiscal year of 1920. So a big jump. So we, within that time frame, had just taken on operations in Manzanita, and there was a lot going on. So a lot of moving parts. My predecessor, David McCall, did a great job of coordinating all the transfer stations and handling those increases. And as we saw through fiscal year 21-2 and 22-23, slight decreases. We had that big COVID bump. They were small decreases. Fiscal year 21-22, we had about a 1.5% decrease in tonnages of garbage coming in. And the following year, 22-23, we had about a 3.7% decrease in tonnages. So slight decreases, which means slight reductions in terms of revenue. And as we saw that big COVID bump, my predecessor was looking to bring on some more staff. We have 5 full-time staff members at the 3 transfer stations now. So I think going back 5 years, and Leanne, you may know, we didn't operate either of those transfer stations. We took on Pacific City, I think, in 2017 and Manzanita in 2019. So in the solid waste world for Tillamook County, there's been a big increase in terms of staffing where we've really increased that expenditure for the department. So we've got a full staff, which is great, but as we're seeing tonnages now decrease, we're looking at about a 4.4% decrease we're projecting for this fiscal year compared to last. So about on par with what we saw for 22-23. We saw about a 3.7% decrease. So, and Chris and I are preparing this budget. We looked at kind of the trends and how we're seeing that decrease in tonnages and adjusted accordingly. So across most of the budget, we did slash a lot. Where needed, we kept similar or we increased the budget category, which we'll discuss in a little more detail as we move on. But in terms of some COLAs coming up in January of 23, January of 24, there's a 2% COLA coming. So in preparing this budget, we're just looking to ensure that we have money to pay for staff, cover expenditures, and make sure the solid waste department, solid waste service district, I've heard many different terms, but make sure we're solvent and looking good moving forward into the future here. So
Can we talk just about staffing?
yeah.
So you say that you're fully staffed. However, you do not have an outreach and education coordinator that you haven't had for many years. And you don't have a part-time code enforcement officer that you've had for many years. So is there any thoughts about staffing those positions that have been budgeted and not filled for years?
I would say, Leanne, that I misspoke a little bit there. I would say that we're fully staffed in terms of transfer station operations.
Okay.
I was surprised because my predecessor had been looking to fill that position for a long time. That was something that I was maybe interested in stepping into. And I think it is needed for the county to have that education outreach, and obviously code enforcement's a big thing too. So as Chris and I went through this process, we went through 2 different SWAC meetings where we really did a deep dive on the budget. And that was a big issue of contention where code enforcement, we haven't really been pushing that a lot in the last year or so, and education and outreach have been trying to fill that since Sue left many years ago. So I know a couple of the SWAC members were very disappointed there was no funds there. What are we going to do? This is important. We need to educate the public, especially with 2025. The new recycling law kicking in, things are going to be changing drastically. And so, I was a little disappointed,
So when we go through here, I actually found money that you could use to hire staff in your budget, because I don't want to say, hey, how about this, without bringing a solution. So as you go through them, I might talk about where I think that you could have the money to hire that staff.
That would be great. Yeah, my thoughts, put my head together with Chris, was that we did increase the rates. The commissioners increased a couple of rate increases for Don Giavo Recycling, and subsequently the county raised our tipping fees for the public. So we built that increase with in mind and promoting internally a staff member who we had in mind to move into possibly the transfer station supervisor, which could float between all the sites, help with code or DEQ requirements, and kind of take a little bit off of my plate. It doesn't help with the education and outreach, and that's something that I've been doing with the Home and Garden Show and such. So be happy to hear where there could be some funds to fill that. Yeah.
Thank you.
And do you want to talk about the code enforcement officer, since she brought that up as well? I believe there have been conversations had between community development and solid waste about, is this a position that we're able to bring together? I know we would all like to have that.
Yeah, so I met with Sarah shortly after taking over for Dave in August, September. We put our heads together, looked at the ordinance, code enforcement, ordinance 4, and we're looking to split the costs, hopefully. They're looking at, I believe, I don't know what the official term is, a liaison or an officer who would be outside the court system and could just put their attention onto these code enforcement cases.
A
to keep
hearings
things moving
officer.
along. A hearings officer,
Yeah.
yes. So, hoping to collaborate. I think there's one other department, if it's the health department or someone else is looking for code enforcement as well. So
Right.
between the 3 of us, I think there's been talks in previous years about something similar. I'm hoping that we can really come to an agreement and make it happen this year. So, we took that into account with our $3 increase per ton. It was for an internal promotion and then also to help fund that part-time code enforcement position.
Okay,
hopefully.
so that is in here.
That is included in our
Okay.
projections. in the budget,
Okay. Perfect.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
I have a question. So when I sat through your budget meeting before, I don't remember seeing that as a line item, those 2 positions, or 1.5.
The code enforcement, the .5 is professional technical, 5,300, and Fund 410.
Okay, so they are there, then they're just not filled. Okay. Well, I was under the impression that it was, so that's, okay, so I guess I missed that, thank you.
The code enforcement .5 is built into the personal services.
Okay, but the outreach and education is not part of this budget.
No,
Okay.
there's not. So we hope for that internal promotion to maybe help with some outreach in conjunction with the program managers, so, yeah, that position.
Don't want to burn you out, Justin.
We're not there yet.
We
but,
do that to people.
Thank you. Appreciate you.
I appreciate Leanne bringing that up because Justin it's been so long since we had Sue in that position that predated Justin. So Justin doesn't, I'm sure you've heard Justin from people, but you didn't have the personal experience of working with Sue and seeing how Sue worked with the master recyclers and in the community and what a terrific benefit it was. So it's been something that people still ask me and talk to me about in the community. Are we ever going to get a volunteer coordinator again? Are you ever going to fill Sue's position? So I'm pleased that Leanne brought it up. Thank you. I'm interested in hearing your ideas about it and I'm glad to talk about it more. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Commissioner Bell, for those comments. Yeah, would have loved to have seen Sue in action, but I've heard great things, and it is a necessity that we need to kind of reinstitute and get that education outreach component going. So some ideas about grants and some ideas floating in my head, but would love to hear, Leanne, where there might be some funds available. So just going back to total tons. So again, just to talk real quick about what the commissioners had previously approved over the past 3-4 months. We've had a couple meetings with SWAC looking at the budget. We did have a cost increase of $2.33 to our hauler, Don Giavro Recycling. That's based on CPI, inflation, and it was about a 3% increase. So that's for money expenditures for hauling garbage out. So subsequently, in looking at the budget, like I mentioned, we increased our rates $3 per ton across the board for most of our services for garbage, yard debris, and that keeps up with, covers Aaron's increase as well as wage increases. As I mentioned, there's a couple COLAs, and we were a little concerned that with the projections, the way the budget was looking, we may have to let one of the current staff go at one of the transfer stations. So based on the budget we're proposing today, we'll be able to keep our staffing level where it is with some nimble flexibility to hopefully fill the code enforcement and education and outreach roles. That is it with big picture. If there's any questions before we move into some of the more specific funds and the different categories, I'd be happy to answer those questions now.
I do have one question, I guess. Based on the amount of volume of the tonnage that we handle, could you compare us to other systems elsewhere in Oregon? Are we staffed at somewhere near the average, or can you say, in other words, takes so many people to move so much garbage from point A to point B, and the vehicles and all of that? Are we comparable to others, recognizing their geographic differences and all of that?
A good question, Commissioner Olson. I would say I don't have intimate knowledge on the topic. I do know that Clatsop County recently built a hazardous waste building, and I believe for over a year now they haven't had anyone to actually fill the position and help run the facility. I don't know if anyone's actually overseeing recycling or solid waste there, and they're not hosting any events currently. So obviously hiring is hard. I do think we are running a little bit with the 5 current members and the 2 transfer stations. We contract with Don Giavro Recycling to operate Tillamook, but Manzanita, we currently have 3 staff. We've had 1 staff member on leave for a while, and we've had 1 in Pacific City. So I think the 3 in Manzanita is ideal. 1 in Pacific City can be problematic when someone gets sick or they need to take, their child got sick at school, and that's something that does come up here and there. So I think having the 5, we're going to have 1 be afloat, move between the 2, and really fill in where needed. So I think our staffing level is adequate. Again, Commissioner, I don't know compared to other counties how many days their transfer stations are open. I was looking at Lincoln City. They have a little different hours and charge different rates. So I'm beginning to kind of make connections and learn more about the surrounding counties. I think Clatsop and Lincoln are good representationally of what we do here in Tillamook County. And so I've got some calls and some things coming up with some individuals in those counties. But again, yeah, I was a little surprised we didn't quite have the funding there to fill education outreach and some of those positions. And so I'm looking at, yeah, staffing. We need to cut. We're looking at possibly cutting one, and yeah, something we'll have to think of for the next fiscal year in terms of where it's the right staffing level and the right combination of operations versus kind of admin and higher level.
So to add to that, we're one of the only counties that actually staff these type of facilities outside of the metro. Almost every county is everything under my contract. Lincoln County, they have just one person. Many of them just have a solid waste contract administrator, and some more counties are moving in that direction. So the fees are actually higher on the west side of the Cascades. The east side of the Cascades, the fees are reasonable low because they don't have to truck all the way over Coffee View or Dallas. So our expenses are quite a bit higher than it would be in the rest of the county simply because proximity to the landfill. But most counties are 100% contracted with one contract administrator.
Do you get any pushback at all on not being open during the week?
We do get a little pushback. I'd say the contractors ideally would like to come in because they're pushing hard Monday through Friday, and they would love to come through. Tillamook is open 7 days a week. They only close, I believe, about 3 days per year. So that's, yeah, just Christmas and a few other major holidays. So that one's available. We do get a little pushback from, yeah, some of the contractors, but I believe the public who have their weekends and enjoy their Sunday, especially in Manzanita where it used to be Cardam, there's kind of an ethos of reuse, and people kind of come and chit chat, and it's kind of a hangout for the local community in North County. So people
Turned
like to
into
come
a
on
social
Sunday.
event, a holiday
Yeah.
Sounds
fest.
funny, doesn't it? Your solid waste station is your hangout, but it's true.
Yeah, we've got a little garden and some chairs, and you sit down from time to time. So, yeah, I've been trying to reconcile that as well. Sometimes we've had some staff in the past who, Sunday, they've never worked Sunday, and other counties they work for don't operate on Sundays. So I've kind of gone back and forth. Could we shift it to a different time frame? I think Lincoln County was Tuesday through Saturday, so they had Sunday and Monday they were closed, and that might be you got one weekend day closed and one weekday, but
Well,
yeah.
I think it works in our end down in the south because there are so many people, the population there is twice on Saturday. Tomorrow will be twice as many as are there today.
That's true. Yeah,
And so they do, I think, take advantage of that. And I've seen a lot of weekend people up there that you never see them except on weekends. And so, there is some logic behind it.
yeah, that's a great point with the tourist industry being such a big part of Tillamook County that having those weekend services are valuable. Monday, which we're closed, we're open on Mondays now, summer hours, but when we do close on Mondays during the winter, we do get some tourists who show up Monday morning in a panic because I got to go to the airport or Portland, and what do I do with my trash? So that's an issue we have seen. So I've been thinking about maybe adjusting the hours, but I think you're right with the big increase in tourism over the weekend. It's important that we're open.
Well, the way it worked when we were in business and had a dumpster, trademark dumpster, sitting in by the business, the Monday people leaving Monday morning, since they couldn't go to a transfer station, would just come over to our business and dump it in. And I gave up on trying to do that. It just, all right, go ahead, help yourself.
Better than the forest, right? You're like, I guess, or the
Yeah.
beach.
We do get some bags left at the gate, and that's better than
Sure.
putting it in the forest. So
Probably better than throwing it out the window, I guess.
Right.
any other questions before we move into a little more detail on the proposed budget? So before you, there was, or included in Treasurer Blanchard's packet, there was a breakdown of the different funds and the different departments. So we'll start with the 410 fund, and just briefly, kind of some high-level items. Please interrupt me if you have any questions on specific numbers or wanted to chat on anything. So with the 410 fund,
Also probably chat about the revenue and the decrease of revenue from what was budgeted to what the actual was.
Gotcha, in terms of on here. Yeah, so on here we have actuals from 21-22, actuals 22-23. We also have 23-24 budgeted numbers, and those are, we have a few months left in that fiscal year here. So we, Chris and I printed out, and that's something I shared with all of you. It shows the projected revenue and expenditures through the end of the year. So this is what helped us build our fiscal year 24-25 budget.
And Commissioner Bell, we didn't print out a sheet to because it wasn't where you're gonna be online, so we'll discuss the numbers as we get through it, as opposed to you didn't get a handout.
Thank you, I appreciate it.
You are.
Okay, so looking at the 410 fund in terms of revenues, so we are projecting for 23-24 a balance of one moment here, so we're cut off a little bit.
Yeah, I can kind of, the budgeted excluding beginning balance for 23-24 was $4,475,500. Our actual anticipated revenue is $3,939,000, et cetera. So we're projected to receive 4.5 million. We anticipate receiving just shy of 4 million. So $500,000 reduction in what we anticipated our budget would be to what we are actually projected to receive.
So I just want to be clear, so, and here that was projected to be 4.36 million, and it's 3.93 million.
Correct.
Okay.
Quite a big reduction. And we can get into more of the specific locations on where we saw that out. And people weren't bringing their tons. People didn't have as much to throw away. The COVID bump is over.
Thank you for that, Chris. So, yeah, looking at the 24-25 proposed budget, we're looking at beginning a balance of just under 600,000, 595,520. We're seeing with the service charges, the property taxes, that's fairly consistent. We bumped it down a little bit as we were projecting out a slight decrease in that budget category. And then in revenue interest, we've I think for this fiscal year, we're at we're showing 57,000 for interest. So a big increase there compared to last fiscal year. So we projected out 30 grand for the proposed budget, kind of a nice in-between between the 10 and the just about 60,000 we're going to be receiving this year in the interest category. So those are for the administrative categories. Under transfer station revenues, we have the surcharges, which is what we charge for every garbage load that comes in. There's a $13 surcharge added to it, and that's tied to tonnages. So we've downgraded that. There was, last year we budgeted $180,000. We're proposing $140,000 for that category, and
We anticipate 138,000 by the end of this year.
yeah, right. So we kind of matched that for the next fiscal year in terms of possibly keeping the tonnages steady from last fiscal year to this fiscal year. So solid waste fees, that's the fees that the haulers pay us for their tipping fees at the Tillamook transfer station and the hauling costs to the landfill. Again, we've proposed 3.3 million there. For the actuals, we were looking at 3.4.
So that's where your 400,000 is.
That's
Yeah.
That's where most of that. Yeah, the actual decrease from last fiscal year to this fiscal year, the previous fiscal year to the current fiscal year did not see $536,000.
But then you should also, on the other hand, if you're not having solid waste come in, like you explained when you started, then you're not paying for those tonnage to be driven to Coffin Butte. So there
That's good.
should be an expenditure reduction also, right?
That is correct.
Okay.
So you'll see that as we project forward.
Continue to move through the revenues. We have under the transfer station category miscellaneous revenue. That's for recycling of scrap metal, certain other materials that we take in number 2 plastics, number 1 plastics. That's steadily been declining, unfortunately. And but with the RMA coming in 2025, I'm hoping that the recycling markets are going to be a little bit more connected, more accessible. There's going to be industry helping us connect the dots and find the markets. So I'm hoping that we can, over the next couple fiscal years, increase revenue from our recycling efforts. So we did downgrade that though, because based on what we were seeing for this fiscal year.
So budget was 40,000. We'll have received 25,000. Is to show that even that's dropping as well.
In terms of RHC 410 category, that's recycling, outreach education and the code enforcement. So the big revenue stream there is our collection and coordination with the Tillamook Estuaries Partnership, with all the redemption cans, bottles, glass that come into the transfer stations. Those get shared with OBRC. We receive the money and we share a portion of that with TEP, and we put that towards education and outreach efforts. So that money goes into the Master Recyclers Program, funding new signage, supporting and all of our education and outreach efforts. We pull from that fund there. So in total, between those three revenue streams, we're proposing $4,363,520 for the next fiscal year. And yeah, as Chris mentioned, 3.9 is what we're projecting as actuals for this fiscal year.
Without the beginning fund balance.
Without the beginning fund balance, correct. Okay, any questions on revenue before we move into expenses? So expenses, we've got first administrative expenses. Those are fairly fixed based on staffing levels. We did have, because David McCall, my predecessor, was included in this fiscal budget, we've, are much lower in terms of expenditures here because he was included with projections. But based on actuals, we're looking at, for the proposed budget, we were having 6.5 staff time. We talked about that. That includes the half-time code enforcement position that we hope to fill in the new fiscal year.
So the question's just on personal salaries. For one, the ASME incentive, I know that was a contractual when you guys signed the contract. Do you have it 2 years in a row?
It's just a carry forward until my payroll specialist decides that, yes, she'll go back to bi-weekly. She came from that here and really loves the semi-monthly because it's like a constant, you're always doing payroll. If we can streamline some more in my office, we'll move to that and then it would be paid out. But
I was just wondering how that worked. And then you've got $17,000 in overtime. So if you have $17,000, that tells me you don't have enough staff.
Well, I think that overtime budget category was something we built into. Was that the money for the potential promotion?
That was potential. Well, yeah, so the overtime was potential promotion, and then also too, it is we've not been able to get BBSI employees, temp employees. So we actually overhired one position in Manzanita to help take care of some backlogs and things of that nature. But the 17,000 in overhead or 17,000 in overtime is conservative. So do we end up with 10,000 in overtime? If you look at the overtime, it is all the benefits already paid. So it's you bring the BBSI in person, or if somebody's wanting to work some extra, which they typically are, it's still, it does allow for them to pick up some extra time.
Okay, it's just back to the personnel issue that we talked about earlier. Okay, thank you.
17 grand doesn't get you a body.
No, but if you look at your previous spending, you've got $360 and $945, and I mean, you hadn't been spending overtime, but, so it was just a big jump, so it just kind of leapt out at me.
Yeah, I will say with Pacific City, we've had to backfill a lot. We have been using more overtime than I would have suspected with me being moved around, people getting sick, so, yeah.
Thank you. I feel like I'm the only one here in the layperson, so I'm like taking all of their comments.
go right ahead.
too.
Yeah, please do.
Great question.
So moving through the proposed, so we're in the 410 category. We have the administrative expenses we just talked about. Within the administrative category, there's materials and services. Again, across the board, we mostly downgraded office supplies, non-capital equipment. In taking over my position, new to the budget, learning a lot. I was very conservative in terms of expenditures, and it ended up working out. Whereas we got closer to the new fiscal year, it was good that I wasn't going out and buying a couple more F-250 trucks or anything like that. So just trying to be conservative and kind of understand the budget before we do make some big expenditures in the future. So again, everything's been downgraded a little bit within the administrative and materials and services. So the total there was about $195,000 we're proposing for the next fiscal year budget. A slight uptick from what was budgeted. But again, we've got 6 staff.
So I just have a couple of questions. So under line item 70, 80, travel, training, and mileage, you've got $3,000. So you're pretty new. You've got some pretty new staff. Is $3,000 enough to grow, to invest and grow your team?
Leanne, that was 70, 80?
7080 on page.
There it is, training, traveling, and mileage.
Yeah,
Yeah, unfortunately, there was a conference in Portland 2 weeks ago, and I just felt like I couldn't go with,
You're too busy?
budget and just too busy for those things. So I
comes
think,
back to the personnel issue.
yeah, I think it's important to go to those
Sorry, I'm
conferences.
just gonna hound that one today.
Yeah. So, yeah, in the past years, we kind of split the difference from what we actually spent on those. And, yeah, that's the down tip for that one.
It's okay, and then my other question, and not even question, observation is that on line, let's look at it, it's 8001, which is the indirect cost allocation, which always says was the black box, which I understand exactly what that is. But you actually had an increase of 20.6% from 86,780 to 109,000. That's a pretty high increase, 20%, when the CPI is 4%. So just wanting to mention that's a significant.
Because we had to balance the general fund budget.
That is not why.
Not really,
It's
but
not why.
But on the
No, no.
backs of the solid waste budget.
It increased.
I don't know,
it's a formula.
I'll let Sean explain, but there are some very big numbers underneath it that are not negotiable, unfortunately, and it's
And I
hitting
get it, I'm just
everybody.
gonna point it out in a public meeting.
Yeah.
It has been across all boards. Chris's public health,
Public Works.
Public Works, Health Department, all of the special revenue funds, the costs have increased over the last year, and the number of, it's, based on number of recruitments, PAFs, number of payables, payroll.
I completely understand why it's that way, but it's still 20%. It's a big increase, and you haven't, you still haven't hired a solid waste outreach and education for hiring.
No, I agree, but it did increase across the board for all special revenue funds that utilize central services like the treasurer, the HR, BOC, IS.
We're all,
Yeah.
didn't hear this morning talking about trying to find other sources of revenue
Mhm.
for government in general, both county and city level. So, it's just a big
So
increase.
there's another problem with that fund. Tell her what it is. We're gonna have to find another one or another formula because the company that supports that is no longer supporting.
Yeah, so I've found a new cost allocation plan.
So you need some more costs.
Yeah, more costs to find a new cost allocation plan.
Yeah,
All right, I just thought that, I just want to mention that.
no, I agree. I was waiting for it.
But I'm being nice about it.
Yeah, everybody got hit this year. It was
Mhm.
between inflation and the comp study that we did for the county and COLAs.
I'm looking for more money too.
We all are
From my
leaving no
position.
stone unturned,
No.
trying to figure out how it is that local government is supposed to survive
I know.
in this environment, because we're not set up to do so. We have hit the end of the time for which our property tax assessments can carry us.
Oh, and the
Um,
$12. So the $1 a month or the $12 a year, I know that you have to it's been that way for decades.
Yeah,
And I know that if you were to go out, you'd have to change it via vote, that it might not pass at all. So that's why I'm sure that you are
No.
not recommended to change that. But it hasn't raised in decades.
no, none of them have, and we're all stuck with it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The advantage of this fund, of course, or this whole program, is you can adjust the rates. So, being a special fund, you can adjust the income and, within certain reason, and that's been discussed in some detail, and so the rates have gone up and you still stay solvent, unlike certain others, as you well know.
Where you don't get to stay solvent.
I know. So the only other item I have on here that I question is that your unappropriated ending balance under Fund 9995 is $225,580. If you were to reduce that to $100,000, that gives you money for an outreach and education person.
My concern with that was when this is going on is that money is intended to pay really for the month of July. And if
What do you
start
mean?
looking at the unappropriated fund balance is there in order to pay for
For cash flow?
cash flow because of April. And you start looking at April's monthly payment,
Well, last year you only had 100,000.
April was too light.
That was a problem last year
It was too late.
Yeah, and the service charge doesn't come in until November.
with the taxes. Okay, just looking for money for you to get fully staffed, so you don't have all the overtime and that you can get to grow your team and grow yourself.
Thank you, appreciate it. Well, that's a good point, but yeah, I understand Chris's rationale there, so. Anything else in that category, Leanne, before
Nope.
we? Okay. All right, we'll move into transfer station expenditures for Fund 410 and, what's the terminology, Department 41002, transfer station expenses. So across the board, for the most part, we've downticked a lot of the budget categories. Minor increases or held steady for most of these.
So is your contracted services then on line 7105, the 2.995 million, is that then a reduction of expenditures in this fiscal year based on the discussion we just had with garbage in, garbage out, which actually normally is turned to computers for me.
Right,
but
garbage in, garbage out. In this case, it's literally.
It's literal garbage in, garbage out. So is that gonna be a reduction in this, so that you will see less expenditures in this fiscal year?
Yes, that is correct.
So the revenue is based on the updated projections for the tonnage, and the expenses also reflect that as well.
Okay, because that way, when you start with this, the minus the 400,000, we don't have the same piece of paper that says what you think you expect to not have to pay out.
It also drops accordingly.
Okay, so it may not be as bad as we think it is.
It's not,
Okay, so,
but
Trying to follow.
it could change. So the difference between those two are,
she may have that in what she sent us. Just wanted to know is it really a $400,000 or is it $200,000?
no, it's actually worse.
It's worse.
So your revenue from what we budgeted in 23-24 was that 536,000 difference. Our expenses, the difference between that was 749,000. So that was over last fiscal year's budget. So we are seeing $750,000 more expenses than we anticipated. But we're also seeing $538,000 less income. So it's
Worse.
I'm back. It's about, I'm sorry about this, Mike.
Okay.
We're about $200,000 different, about $250,000.
Okay, so that's kind of where I was coming from.
Something's going on there. It's about $250,000.
Okay, it's still bad,
It's both drop, right?
but it's not the 500,000 we talked about
Right.
20 minutes ago. Okay,
It's not directly proportionate because salary has increased.
and thank you for having patience with me as we walk ourselves through this.
Oh, yeah, of course.
Okay, go ahead, Justin.
Can I ask a question about bank fees? Is that credit card charges? And is this a place that we should be looking at a technology fee?
So that is charged by Averill
Mm-hmm.
with the use of the majority of that with the use of their credit cards up there. It's included in their invoice.
Uh-huh.
I don't think, I think in the past, David and I had tried to put our accounting machine up there, and for
Yeah.
some reason, there was a reason we couldn't, because it would have been a county machine used by a non-county employee.
Right.
So there was something that stopped us from doing that. So yeah, and I think their fees are more expensive than ours, but there's nothing we can do about it that I know of.
Okay. Okay, I asked that, Leanne, because in other county departments where we were being charged credit card fees, we added a technology fee to the customer
Good for you.
that says,
They're expensive like
technology's not
parks.
free.
I mean, I remember the
Yeah.
parks budget, I don't know, you would probably spend $70,000 on bank fees for the parks department, or probably even more than that.
Yeah, so we're trying to make sure that, as we shift to technology, we acknowledge that
Right.
technology is not free. It's
Right.
great, it's convenient, has a lot of other things, but it's not free. So I was just curious if that could be applied here, but apparently
Good
not.
point.
Because it's coming directly from Averill and they're not charging that.
They do not pass that fee on to the customer, no.
Right. So we have to pay for it.
Okay, in terms of expenses there, no other big glaring topics. Transfer station expenses, moving into, the last thing on there would be the contingency. So Chris and I squirreled away $250,000 for contingency if needed.
And that could also maybe be used for staff if you wanted to take that to 150,000, because that's still, I wish I had that kind of contingency in any one of my budgets.
So it's actually on par with the way the contingency was previously done. It was actually one of the contingency items was buried in the buff. We just put it together in one line. So one of them was previously buried, so it makes sense. And I know that having this budget gone out of whack in the past, it just felt that having that contingency because of the uncertainty in the market and the uncertainties of the COVID, what's happening with that, having a little bit more tolerance for that would accommodate that. So if you had summer or a really crazy winter, I think contingency is it's important.
I don't disagree with you.
Things happen.
Yes. Fast.
Okay, so in terms of total expenses for the transfer station department, we're looking at $2,958,500. So compared to previous fiscal years, we're right on par with that. Revenue minus expenses, we're looking at just about $500,000 there. So close to what we saw in fiscal year 22-23. Any questions on the transfer station expense department before we move into closed landfill expenses?
No. Not for me.
So let's kind of discuss just briefly the outreach coordinator position. It's something that I think everybody wants and we do as well. The personnels are one thing, but when Sue was here, just after about the time that she was leaving, China started putting the ban on everything. And today we can recycle far fewer things than we were able to in the past. There's a lot of valid reasons to bring that in to coordinate the master recyclers, not just not just recycling, but all the different services that they do out there. And one of the things that what I would like Justin to do is part of this is bring up another person to start to take on role number 2, and that would help free Justin up to do something he's been passionate about, which is to start opening that back up. Seeing as how that position's been dormant for a while, it is something that it's pretty much has to get rebuilt from the ground up. So it's staffing a full-time person in that. It means that full-time person is not going to have a lot to do to begin with. The program needs to revamp, and there's a ramp-up time, and I'm hoping Justin can get to that. I know there's passion there.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And are we expecting funding to come with the new Recycling Act? I mean, are we expecting that may be a piece that would be added back as we move forward under, I can't remember what the House bill is, that's,
Yeah, Recycling Modernization Act.
Yeah.
July 2025 is the kickoff date. We've had a few
Yeah.
calls with, it's called the Producer Responsibility Organization,
Right.
Circular Action Alliance, I think is their name. So I've had a couple calls with them, with Recology and City Sanitary, Mr. Bobby Poppy, who was here a
Right.
couple days back. And so we're kind of looking at, the state's going to standardize recycling. How's that going to impact the haulers? We need more
Right.
curbside. And so it's going to be interesting how it all shakes out, where the money falls, where the money can be allocated to. But yeah, they are saying they're going to help support developing the markets, connecting, getting the trucking involved. So there's going to be some money flowing into Tillamook
right.
County.
So there may be a good opportunity to add back this
Yeah.
position with a full slate of work, because there's going to be a ton for that Recycling Modernization Act to figure out what that looks like.
And it will take time to ramp that up, so that might be actually coincides with what you guys may be able to accomplish.
And does it actually generate revenue for us, or does it just change how that recycling is shifted,
Sure.
right? So it could be completely independent, which is really what it's intended to do.
Yeah.
But does it actually increase our fee because now we have more administrative components to deal with? It may actually be, from purely, I mean, it's a good thing all around.
Yeah.
But if you look dollar for dollar, it might actually be a little bit of a hindrance because now we have more administrative fees to make.
Maybe,
Yeah.
maybe unless they also give us money to help support that, which hopefully they are gonna recognize that there is capacity that needs to be added to small local governments to do this. I know that's been in some of the conversations I've been in at AOC, there were pieces to that, which said, don't forget,
But,
you can't
so,
just expect
but I have
this."
found that the state has no problem handing out unfunded mandates.
Nope, so we'll see where it goes.
Right?
Yep.
Yeah. So it'll be interesting to see how much money comes through.
Yeah.
And I've been talking with Aaron Averill of John G. Averill Recycling. We need more space at the Tillamook transfer station if we're going to expand our double our category of recyclable materials, we're gonna need a building to keep it out of the stormwater and store it and bale it. And so that's where I think a lot of the funds could go. I
Yeah.
love your point, Commissioner Scar, about maybe using that for funding and some education and outreach. But yeah, we'll see how it goes. I'm hoping that
Huge
there's
change coming, so we'll
millions-
see what
yeah,
ends up,
some
how,
money.
how it flows through.
I will mention on that topic, we have had some success. I've been on the Heart of Cardon board since I started working here 3 years ago. I'm kind of helping them do reuse, recycling, and so I provided them with a letter of support about 6 months ago for a grant through the OBRC fund, I believe it is, and we received $25,000 to apply to the Master Recyclers Program to
Good for
do
you
some
guys.
rebranding, and that will actually reimburse her to teach the class. We'll have someone who can teach it and take that off my plate. So I've been looking at, grants. That could be a great resource, but again, it's putting in the work to apply and tracking the grants. I mean, it's a great source of funding, but do you have the time and the bandwidth to go down that road with 4 or 5 different grants to supplement our revenue? So it's an option. We've had some success there, but yeah, we'll see in the future if that's another good way to go.
I wonder if there's any opportunity for something like a rare intern.
It's an idea.
Like I know, yeah, there are people who are organizations that are looking at rare interns, and it might very well be too late already for next year, but there are people who will devote a year of service as part of their master's program, and generally the master's programs are in public service. And so there's a broad category of work that can apply to that. So it's RARE is, I don't remember what the acronym stands for, but I think, I know emergency management is in conversation with OSU about a rare intern, and so is the Economic Development Council. And I think that the monetary investment was just $13,000 for a year, which is, cheap.
Yeah.
So, and also let's talk about, or at least start thinking about, for the outreach coordinator, for the hope for it. I don't think you would want to start full time. I think because, to Chris's point, you need to ramp up. I think, if our goal was to start somebody part time, it's just more achievable.
That's a very good thought. Thank you, Commissioner.
Yeah, thank you, Commissioner Bell.
You're welcome.
Rare intern. Yeah, never heard of it, but fantastic idea.
Do you know if the county is going after that with emergency management with Randy? Because that position
Yes.
does a lot with volunteers. This position does a lot with volunteers.
Correct. Yes, Randy is.
Yeah. We will do some investigation on that. Great idea. Okay, let's move into the closed landfill expenses. Again, one of our smaller budget categories. Not much change here. We did see a slight uptick in telephone budget. It's just increases from the provider there. And most of the other items we've downticked. Monitoring is a big budget item here. That's for measuring the landfill slippage, monitoring stormwater samples. And those are the 2 big things with the closed landfill there. We've got monitoring the structural integrity and the leachate that's coming out of the transfer station there. So that's the big ticket item here. And again, everything else across the board has been either held steady or decreased. Any questions on this department? Okay. Moving into our RHC expense department. So this is recycling, education, code enforcement, all of those items. Again, similar to the other categories, because we're projecting a decrease in revenue. We've reduced where we thought most important, most efficiently in terms of a lot of these expenditures. The one line item you may have noticed is the hazardous waste program. That is account number 7850. And we increased that from $100,000 this year to $120,000 for next year. And so I think with our last invoice with Clean Earth, who's our provider, we're going to just slightly go over the $100,000 mark. There was a change order, I believe, fiscal year of 23-24, where they came with some increases in prices and costs, and so that was approved by the commissioners. But we're going to be doing one more extension coming up here, and I imagine there might be some increases there. So
It's a very popular program across the county.
it is, yeah. We just had our
That's what we don't like.
Right, that's it, yes.
We are overspent on that line.
Are we already there?
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you, Sean.
Well, we
How much are we overspent?
We anticipate the end of that, Stericycle's contract had really jacked up their rates right there. Stericycle was
We're
probably,
Clean Earth, Chris.
is it Clean Earth?
Yeah.
Clean Earth is the one that was the biggest impact with the change in their contract rates.
It's just, yeah, inflation.
I know.
Expensive industry, yeah.
It
we-
is.
Yeah,
It is.
ammunition, any ammunition, there's one facility in Arkansas who takes, I'm not sorry, not ammunition, marine flares. You know, it goes to a certain facility, gets shipped across the country, no matter if you have 1 or 1,000 of them. So it's an expensive industry. We talked with SWAC about maybe, because that is the big ticket item here, and like I mentioned, in other counties locally, they have 1 a year, 4 a year. There's none scheduled, and I already mentioned the county, but I won't mention it again. No hazardous waste events scheduled. So we talked to SWAC to maybe, we have 9 events. It's highly popular. We just took a 2-month break from April. We just had our one. I'm sorry, we had one in March. We just had one in May, and we had 147 cars, and that's typical. Typically, we're probably about 80 to 100. The event before we had 67. There was kind of inclement weather that pushed people away, but we talked about maybe going from 9 to 6 or maybe quarterly. Does that just kind of build up the need? And so when they do come, they're bringing multiple
Right.
trucks with trailers, and
Right.
so does it really decrease our costs? I don't know.
I think it's a great program, so I'm certainly supportive of all of that. My only question on this whole budget then is that you've cut out the looks like, is that the education maybe, so where's your HAZWOPER training budget? Is that in this line item? So if you've got people at the household hazardous waste, they are required to be HAZWOP trained, correct?
That's actually, we put that, so we're currently, the short HAZWOP, the 24 hours to the 40-hour HAZWOP is what's needed for that. They just need one, to be there. Trying to find that number. Where can we do that?
Yeah, I think it's under.
If it's buried in there somewhere, I just want to know that
Yeah,
you've got the money to train people to be,
it might be
actually deal with hazardous waste.
admin training, perhaps.
Yeah, I think we were trying to bring all that training under admin.
Which was your $3,000 line item?
Was that
Early.
travel and training?
I'm just saying it's light.
Yeah.
So, just something to consider.
Thank you, Leanne. Okay, any other? Let me just quickly review that. That was the one increase. Everything else has seen a downtick. The $35,000 for recycling promotion, that is what comes from the, as I mentioned earlier, the cans and bottle collection. So we're seeing a slight decrease there. There's a big uptick with COVID, with everyone enjoying beverages at home, but we're seeing a slight decrease. But people are still buying their sodas, and they're actually moving to add more items to the covered beverages. I think wine bottles, maybe milk, but that'll also increase the revenue item there. So we enjoy working with TEP. They do great work, and we appreciate their support and utilizing those funds. So that's pretty much it for, I think, our kind of outreach, education, code enforcement expenses.
How do you separate back to the beverages nowadays? There's so many different kinds, some plastic and aluminum and who knows what else. How are those separated and returned, and where do they go when they leave the stream? Are they going back to bottlers, or what do they do now? Those were going overseas at one time, weren't they?
Yeah, I mean, China was taking a lot of our materials. So at the transfer stations, we segregate, plastics, glass, aluminum, different categories. We segregate the aluminum deposits separate from aluminum. We get a lot of cat food cans and things of that nature. So we do the segregation there. We put them into either totes for glass, bottles for plastics, and then OBRC brings the truck through once a week, loads up, hauls it off. I'm not intimately knowledgeable of exactly what their recycling market is. I imagine in 2025, as we're getting more recyclers, more of the industry involvement, we're going to see where things are going. This was a big question at the Home and Garden Show was, you say you recycle it, and we do. I know it gets to someone in Portland, but people were even saying, well, then once it gets to the processor in Portland, how do you know what they're doing? And so I told them that, DEQ, based on what we send to processors in Portland, they look to match the quantities. They're trying to, make sure those are accurate. And I imagine DEQ looks into what their end markets are and where things are going there. They do a great job of being thorough on that. So I would hope it's being It's great when things are in
I'm
that circular
sure when
model.
it gets to that end, but there's also more than one type of plastic, PVC versus some others, as I recall. And I'm just wondering, if you don't do anything about that here, that goes in as plastic, period, right?
PVC,
Well, there's different kinds of plastics and they have different characteristics, whether or not they can be remanufactured or
Right.
recycled. And, we don't separate at that point. If it's plastic, it goes to the plastic people, right?
well, we currently take ones and twos in terms of the types of plastic. Number one, PETE, and number two, HDPE. Those are the two we take. When I started here 3 years ago, that's what the transfer stations took. So I was curious, coming from California, they did have a little bit more robust plastic recycling with number fives. We're seeing a lot of sevens now, which is kind of just a other catch-all category. So there's constantly new ones coming on the market. Some are more easily recyclable than others. I imagine that's why ones and twos were being collected and recycled. We just shipped out a load of number one plastics. We're getting $120 a ton. So not a huge revenue source, but we want to do the right thing. It's the right thing to do, keep it out of the landfill. And there's more plastics popping up here and there. So in terms of the 2025 law, number fives are going to be included. So we're going to start taking number five plastics at all three transfer stations.
That'll
Plastic
probably be a losing operation for us.
in terms of dollars and cents. Or?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, that's hopefully the manufacturers are gonna supplement that gap and fill, that loss for us and make the market stronger. So we shall see. But I'm sorry, Commissioner Olson, I kind of lost where we started
No,
there.
that's fine. That's, my fundamental question was, they're not separated here. We're not paying out of this budget to separate them into 3 or 4 different kinds. Maybe we are making one pass, but not like it would be at the other end.
Right, we're paying for it in staff time, visual audits, source separating ones and twos, taking the fives out, putting them in the garbage, but we're not, excuse me, running any MRFs or doing any extreme sortings, just kind of a visual, quick sort
Well,
to
I've
keep the
seen
street
these
clean.
things on TV where somebody stands at a conveyor belt all day long, and I can't think of a much worse job than trying to pick that stuff out as it comes by. And, it's like the old one, what was I Love Lucy, and where the candy factory overwhelmed her, one of those.
Yeah, MRFs are really interesting though, just with the amount of technology
Oh,
they
yeah.
use with, magnets and air and water and you just,
It's
they had
incredible.
commingled in San Jose, California where I was. And so we got, anyway, lots of reasons that I would end up with the MRF and it was cool.
Yeah.
Cool to watch and just see how that all works.
Yeah, I went to grad school in San Jose, and that's one of the shining examples of a MRF. They do an incredible job with the optical sorters and lasers and all that
Yeah.
interesting technology.
Yeah, it was.
It's
I
an
worked at
interesting
the-
industry.
Yeah, I worked at the San Jose Conservation Corps and we had all sorts of recycling components as part of that. And so we had a crew that worked out at the MRF there.
Did grad school there, and I remember Conservation Corps coming up here and there. So
Yeah, because they did business collection. When I was there, there was no hauler that did the business collection for recyclables. This was a few years ago. And that was part of that nonprofit's deal was they'd collect it. And yeah, so we were training kids to drive trucks and have customer service and all kinds of great stuff using that.
yeah, interesting.
Yeah, back in the day. My other life.
Okay, so yeah, in terms of expended expenses, for the budget category of RHC, revenues minus expenses were higher than the past actuals, 21, 22, and 23, but yeah, slight uptick driven by Clean Earth and hazardous waste disposal there.
I think we're starting to ramp up some of our advertising too for home garden, which we haven't spent in the last couple of years. So that was also done there as well. So
Yeah.
a little bit more ramp up again with the education outreach component.
Okay, so real big picture, just to summarize kind of money in, money out, we've got the revenue and expense summary. So we've got, in terms of resources coming in, the beginning fund balance we're proposing is, as I mentioned earlier, just under 600,000. We're looking at revenue of $3.768 million, largely from those garbage tipping fees, as we discussed. So that's a total revenue of $4,363,523. And with expenditures, money going out, personnel services, 641,000. Materials and services, and that's gonna be our contract services for hauling to the landfill, the big ticket item there. So that's $3,141,940 expenses. Capital expenditures, we had the $5,000 in that category. And I think, Chris, you and I talked about that. The capital expenditures, and Sean, I think Deborah and I had a conversation. Capital is $50,000 the threshold?
Five.
It's 5. Okay, that's it then. Okay, so that's in there.
got 2 new vehicles, so you're good.
Yeah, we're good. And then transfers out, that's to the sinking fund, which we'll talk about next, $100,000. So that's in total of expenditures, 3.8 million, $3,887,940. And then our 2 reserves, as we talked about, contingency, the 250, and then unappropriated funds, which will get us through our early fiscal year expenditures of 475,000 in reserve.
But you can't spend the unappropriated, right, without an act of God? I think that's what we've all, that's what I was told.
Yes.
a long
You
time.
can spend the
Me too.
contingency, not the unappropriated.
Any questions on the 410 fund before we move to 420? Okay, so 420, known as the sinking fund. So we've got this here with the beginning balance of, we're proposing 214,000. State grants, as we've come before the commissioners over the last 4 or 5 months, we've been able to secure a couple grants. My predecessor and I worked on with the Overflow Stormwater Grant Program out of DEQ, out of the state. So those are funds that can be put towards capital improvement projects. They have to be stormwater related, and they are grant money. They do require a match, however. We were going to use the SRF loan money, which is further down the loan proceeds in the revenue department. We were going to use the loan funds as the matching funds to utilize the grant funds. It was a 60-40 split, so we could use 60% grant funds and match it with 40% from the loan money. Most recently, Chris had a call with DEQ. Megan, our contact there, submitted a request to the feds to potentially enable our grant money to have a no match standard. So we would be able to use the funds freely without using the loan funding. So we just keep our how much we dig into the loan at a minimum, which would be great. So that would be money we could use for the improvements. So that's an exciting development, and we should hear back here in the next couple months about that. We've got that for Pacific City and Manzanita, so those are great resources there with the grant money. Interest, we've got 3,000. Transfers for solid waste, we do on a monthly basis transfer money from our 410 fund into the 420 fund. So then we're proposing a $100,000 transfer for the next fiscal year. And then we also have the loan proceeds, as I mentioned, at about 2.5 million. So those have been awarded. Those are SRF state revolving fund loans. Again, time to stormwater. They are 50% forgivable. And we currently are in contract. The commissioners have approved us to use design funds. So we're looking to engage with the engineers and get things back up and running. And then the design funds that are approved are much lower dollar amounts, in the tune of about 150,000. So we'll be looking to execute the rest of the money here over the next fiscal year. So that's the bulk of the revenue for the sinking fund at just over $3 million, $3,097,100. In terms of expenses, money moving out that we're projecting for the next fiscal year, Chris and I are moving as we speak to re-engage with the engineering firm, and that would be the $220,000 for consulting, getting things finalized in terms of design and moving forward with the construction phases. So paying the engineers is the $220,000 there. Permit fees, principal payment on the loans, interest payment, that was something that was developed, I think it was in last fiscal year. Yeah, you can see the $81,000 as the principal payment. As my predecessor and Sean weren't quite sure when the loan was going to be enacted, when we'd be able to execute it, they had built in that principal payment in the budget. So we've built that into our new fiscal year, and we've also got the interest now. So the two of those combined are quite close to that, the principal payment from the last fiscal year. So we're looking at, in terms of materials and services expenditure, is just over $300,000, $11.150. And then moving further down expenditures, capital outlay, this is getting into the big construction projects we've discussed at Manzanita and Pacific City. We're looking to redo a couple retaining walls, increase capacity for the amount of Z-walls and garbage that we can load in. In Pacific City, the big push is to get a building where we can keep the recycling under cover, keep it out of the weather, and also accommodate our growing list of recyclables that we will be required to accept here in Tillamook County. So that building is going to be a crucial infrastructure, I think, for the next 20, 30, 40 years to maintain that presence in Pacific City. So
Wasn't that partly a drainage project too, or was that something else?
in terms of the funding,
Yes.
yes, that is all tied to stormwater. So by us keeping the recycling out of the rain, getting the Z-walls and the walls fixed, that'll help us grade the water away from the Z-wall so it doesn't go into the trash. We're going to put a canopy over the garbage to keep the stormwater. So it does kind of all get tied back to stormwater, yes.
Get the stormwater grant and DEQ's allowed us to be a little creative.
Although I think we still have stormwater issues up at the Tillamook transfer station, don't you?
We do.
And I know that there's, the last time I was up there, the potholes were ginormous. And so you don't have any paving. I know that you've been wanting to pave up there for the last several years, so I see $0 at the Tillamook transfer station.
Yeah, I know we've got scheduled to go out there and do some work on that. I'm not entirely sure where that money was coming from off the top of my head either.
It might, and if you're gonna
Or
do it
we'd
before
ask
July
them to
1st,
go
it might be in this fiscal year.
Possibly.
I'm just saying that you have nothing for Tillamook, and that's probably the busiest transfer station you have.
True. Yeah, perhaps it was an in-kind donation from Public Works to solid waste.
Don't venture into that.
Oh, we could, let's have that conversation.
I do know that when you come up and you take the right to go on to the scale, that area there is where the heavy paving would go. It wasn't intended to do paving the entire.
I wouldn't think so, but just some of the patches, just, you can see some failures up there.
You're going up the hill.
Don't go up the hill, just go downhill.
Yeah.
Well, you're going down the hill.
So anyways, I don't know if there's,
No,
anyways,
thank you, Leanne.
it's just
Yeah.
something I'm
Thanks for
noticing in
pointing
this.
that out. Yeah, we've talked about that, but yeah, perhaps it's in our fiscal budget now, but yeah, Chris and I will put our heads together on
Okay.
that.
Thank you.
So yeah, in terms of total capital outlay, 2.5 million, all of that is gonna be drawn from the SRF loan money, which I mentioned are 50% forgivable. Moving forward, just to wrap it up, total transfers out, we've got the $150,000 contingency built in there, and then the unappropriated fund balance of $115,950.
So my only other comment here is your contingency is 150. If you were to take $50,000 out of that, you could possibly hire a part-time outreach education position and reduce your contingency to 100,000. Because if you have part-time, I'm not actually sure what you may not have to pay the benefit package for somebody who's not. They're 20 hours or less. I don't think you have to pay benefits. Is that 19? So just something to consider.
So reduce the transfer to
So you,
by 50,000 instead of 100,000, 50,000, keep the 50,000 in the solid waste budget and reduce your contingency in that.
I'm just, like I said, if I were trying to make a suggestion, I wanted to also bring solutions to you. So I've highlighted a few places in here where I think that you could find that $50,000, and it's mostly in your contingencies, and so anyways,
So
thank you.
my concern with that, when you look at capital outlay of 2.5 million.
Yep.
And the uncertainty of price increases, hopefully we get good bids, but they never seem to actually occur that way. And I think if we do see some real life savings there, then possibly we could look at doing that.
I think you guys have done a great job with this budget. I mean, we are all struggling with not having enough money to do the things that, and the expectations of our communities. And I think that this is a really important program, so I appreciate all the work that you guys have put into this, so. I'm not being negative, I'm just doing my observations.
I appreciate those comments. The asphalt, the solid waste pays the road department that 30 grand, plus they're also paying the mechanics when we do work on their trucks. That is actually over in the 410 as a transfer of that. It's not spec'd out as far as asphalt per se, because they're not buying materials. So they're basically reimbursing us to do that.
Okay, so you do, so you found it.
That's what I didn't think about it.
Thank you, Chris.
Just to elaborate a little on your comment there, Leanne, if the contingency, as you've mentioned in a couple different points, so we can adjust that, do we need to make a decision today before we approve it? Or is this something we can readjust, look at revenue for the first 4 or 5 months and then?
So
Or
generally, generally I think this is my 4th budget committee, this year.
Tell us the rules.
Is that you would amend this, and then you approve the budget, and then it could be moving forward, through the rest of your process. But if you approve it and you don't make those changes, then you have approved exactly what you have in here, unless you can be creative within the rules of your budget law.
Right, and that would be a supplemental budget, next fiscal year. So if you make the recommendation that you want it, we can change it today.
Yes.
Because the approval isn't gonna come before you until June 26th.
So as a solid waste budget lay committee here, I would recommend that you find $50,000, and I think that you could find a part-time person for that, depending if you had to pay. And if you have to choose that, I would pick the easiest one, and maybe you do 20, 20, 10, come up with your $50,000 out of some of these, so you're not taking 50 out of one, and then hire that part-time public outreach. So, but that's, again, this committee is 6 people, so we've got the 3 commissioners, so, what are your thoughts?
I guess I would look to Justin and say, are you ready to do that? In your operations and with the work that's on your plate, do you see that as a priority for what you would like to do? Because I think that for me, you have a lot more inside knowledge and because of having been at Public Works before than I do related to all of this. So I have to rely on Justin to be my expert. And so I guess my question would go back to Justin as my expert. Do you think that's something you see as the right move in your department this year? Because I don't want to impose that on you as my expert if you don't think that's the right move for your department this year. So that's my take, because I have to be such a generalist as a commissioner. I'm sure you understand.
Of course I do.
Before you go, what did we do with Heart of Cardam? There was a contract that we had talked about as far as them actually doing some of this outreach, about 10 grand or something like that. I don't recall off the top of my head what.
Yeah, back in my transfer station supervisor days.
Yes.
when I was-
You were already moved into the interim, and the Heart of Cardam, we were looking at doing some contract type of work for that.
Yeah, so we've contracted with Heart of Cardam, a nonprofit in North County, to help with the Master Recyclers program. There was discussion as I've been on their board about, because the county has struggled to fill that education outreach position, could Heart of Cardam take on the entire education and outreach program? And there was some potential there where I showed them the job description that most recently went out. The pay scale was, $16 to $19 an hour, and I don't think we got any applicants. It was grant writing and a lot of high-level items. So, but based on that 40 grand, Heart of Cardam said, we could do a lot of these things at that dollar amount, and so there is potential to.
Because they submitted an offer, it's like 10 grand. I just don't remember where.
Yeah, I think that was specific to Master Recyclers, but they also put together a proposal for a 40 grand that we could do this as.
That might be a
education
nice
outreach
transition
part.
to similar to what Commissioner Bell was saying, is help you ramp up.
Right.
And if they take on some of that responsibility, it's not another burden on you to hire a person, train that person when you're already busy. So and is that $40,000 in here somewhere?
Don't believe so.
I would say no, it's not. Yeah.
Okay, so maybe we take the 2020, or somehow you come up with your contingency for 40,000, you add it to contracted services under whatever, and then you could get some more help with your program.
Yeah. And Commissioner Scar, just to speak to your point, I do think it's important that
Yeah.
we get someone in that role to take a little bit off my plate to really devote the time that it deserves to do the education and outreach, because I'm doing it now, but it could be a lot more robust and thought through and shiny and effective. So
then the other concern is if we're taking, are we creating something that is affordable in years to come? Is it coming from revenue we're generating? Or are we pulling it out of a beginning fund balance or something that a contingency that is really part of that money we need to have for emergency? Are we committing ourselves to a person ongoingly, which would speak perhaps to a contract to Cardam being a better choice in a one-time sort of deal? And if next year the money's
See how it
just
goes.
not there,
yeah.
or the money, I'm sorry?
They have a large national.
Sure. So I always want to be very cautious about adding personnel if we do not see our revenue stream remaining strong enough to pay for that personnel into the future. as a reimbursing employer, we're gonna pay for them into the future, even if we lay them off. So there is some real challenge here that we have to be exceptionally thoughtful about. So, you know, I would support it, I think, just thoughtfully.
Yeah.
Maybe that
No,
contract
that's
is
a great
good.
point, because this is my first time really doing
Yeah.
a deep dive in the budget and
Yeah.
worried about decreasing revenue, and I thought we had more money and the sinking fund's lower, so I was.
And if it's in your contingencies, you could use it for that,
That
right?
was gonna be my other point.
So you
is
wouldn't have
it's
to
in your-
modify, we wouldn't have to change your budget. But if it's a contingency, then it gives you an option to consider, and you and Chris can talk about that. And I actually do like the idea of maybe the heart of Cardum to see, how is this gonna work?
Right, yeah.
So my question is, can you get somebody and actually make it work on it with 19 hours? Because if you cross that threshold, the costs go up exponentially because you click into the retirement and all the other. So is it really practical to, let's say 16 hours, 2 days, so eight times 2? Can you get this done in 8 hours times 2 days?
Right.
And would it be too consecutive? I mean, those are operational matters, but, you know, are you getting what we're paying for? Can it be done? Or is this too complex, too many moving parts? Don't know.
Well, yeah, and that makes me curious about what we're looking at if we hired someone part-time at 19 hours a week, was it? Yeah, that would not include benefits. I'm just curious what that total number looks like in terms, you know, what we would, to employ that part-time position. Is then we could compare it to a $35,000 contract with Heart of Cardum, where I just pay them, there's some deliverables, and they go and do what they do.
I don't like that
And if they
idea.
put 60 hours in, and she wants.
That idea too.
Yeah.
However many, 35,000,
As soon as you
30,000.
hire somebody on.
Yeah.
It's difficult to get rid of them when, I mean, it's not, but.
Yeah.
It's just I mean, it's
just
expensive.
value.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, and
You
it's,
don't wanna hire somebody knowing that I could potentially let you go.
right,
And
but I
Heart of
can't
Cardum-
afford you.
Yeah.
There's a passion for it, they like doing it, they'll probably kick in more hours than what they budgeted for anyways, because
Yeah.
it's what they do.
It's part of their mission.
They're
Well,
just-
they can
I-
leverage it. Yeah, sorry, Commissioner.
I also support, that's okay. I also support the idea of exploring it with Heart of Cardum. I think you could, we would need to make sure, to Commissioner Scar's point, that it's an annual contract or something like that, that it's not, that they don't perceive it as moving into the future because we're not sure about the revenue stream. One of the first things that happened it was at the end of 2018, when I was coming in as a commissioner, is that the county discontinued their contract with Cardum, which I imagine you've heard about, Justin, because people are still upset about it in North County. So I wouldn't want to restart that whole thing with the Heart of Cardum. So we have to figure out, like, can we develop a pilot project for 1 year and then reassess? So there's that. And, but also I agree that is their mission, and they are interested. Jesse just has talked to me about it, about the idea of it. They are interested. So I think it's worth exploring for sure. And also to Doug's question, I think having somebody start really part-time does make sense, because I don't know how often the master recyclers meet, but it's, probably not very often. Is it monthly or maybe twice a month? I don't know. So because everything has kind of shut down, over the years since we lost Sue, and we're just doing less and less with those groups. So, I would think that if we went the employee route, starting somebody very part-time is reasonable. And because you could control the scope of it, like you're just doing the master recyclers, and X, whatever you thought the priority was. And then if there's the opportunity to grow it, then great, but maybe, only if the funding is available. So I support the idea of planning for it and using a relatively small amount of contingency to figure out how to move forward.
We made a run at a hybrid outreach coordinator / transfer station man operator. And we had one person that had expressed some interest in doing that. It's kind of a unique combo. And then she decided she didn't want to do that. She took a job elsewhere making more money. One of the problems we were running into is the transfer station operators in Manzanita. We couldn't get BBSI employees, so we actually overfilled the position. So during the summer, you're almost staffed where you need to be, but you're a little overstaffed during the winter. The skill sets are not really compatible with the outreach coordinator and the operator's position, but that has allowed us to catch up on the mounds and mounds of styrofoam that occurs back there. The conversation with Cardum is, that Heart of Cardum was to really establish the program, kick it back off the ground, the training program for the master recyclers. And I think we can tweak that a little bit to a one-off contract that could develop into some type of an annual. So there is a proposal on the floor. I just don't think we really did much with it.
Yeah, and my predecessor was very careful about re-engaging with Heart of Cardum because there was that disconnect in 2019. So we did some smaller contracts, kind of proof of concept. They helped run some e-waste collection events, and they're helping with the Master Recyclers program for just under 10,000. So we've kind of been doing little things to hopefully build some confidence towards this bigger role. So I think we'll explore both
That's
options.
10 grand. I knew there was 10 grand.
Yeah. It sounds like we could pull from contingency for either, so we can just proceed with the budget as.
That's, yeah.
Yeah.
That's, Sean can tell us what you can do or not do.
Either. Either.
Okay.
And it'd be about 25,000 for a 19-hour employee for a year,
If you can find a person.
if you can find the person. But I think with the passion that Cardum has to do it, it would make more sense than to utilize HR's time, payroll's time to try and find a person
Indirect cost.
indirect cost.
And yeah, the 40 grand was something we based on the job description, but that number is flexible. Maybe it's 35, 30, I'm not sure.
Yeah, and that's something you can explore if you're using contingency. You have that money in there. The spending authority exists for you to create that this year as it makes sense for you, which again, I appreciate that, that it's in your court to develop it as it makes sense.
Thank you, Commissioner Scar.
Yeah, thank you. That was a great discussion, so I'm feeling optimistic, hopeful, and yeah, that's a good development here. So we will leave everything as is, and we've got the wiggle room within the contingency to go either direction, and hopefully build out that education and outreach position. So, okay, any other questions on the sinking fund? 420, we've got one more fund, and it's fairly simple. This is the 430 fund, Department 43000. This is the Solid Waste Post-Closure Reserve Fund. So this was money that mandated by DEQ must be held in a fund to cover any potential catastrophic meltdown, leachate, any issues with the closed landfill. So there's a whole calculation. I'm not know all the details, but in terms of some recent developments, we could potentially withdraw based on some calculations. $400,000 of that, but again, there's just so much uncertainty there with
I just believe it.
concentrations. And yeah, we're
And
just not-
congratulations to getting the $1 million. That took years to get there.
yeah. So you've known
Yeah.
Leanne how
It was
it's-
100
yeah. So we're gonna leave that as is. There's no money, no money in, no money out. I just spoke with the guy in Washington who uses worms to clean up stormwater, and we're gonna have a call. So we're gonna keep working on it, see if we can find an innovative solution. Because once we get certain levels below a certain threshold, then we can just discharge leachate into the stormwater system, and we won't have to worry about this fund in its full
Let me ask
capacity.
John, are these funds that are sitting there, are they in a specific line item in the LGIP?
They are earning interest. They do earn a portion of interest when it's distributed throughout all of the special revenue funds.
Because interest wasn't listed this year.
Yeah, we just listen to that.
I don't think it's ever been listed.
Well, it was listed in
It earns.
21 to, oh, it's just the actual. I see. We don't ever budget for it. You just apply the actual.
Yes.
There it is.
Which doesn't really matter because we're not doing anything with it anyway, but.
So it just folds back into the balance, the running balance? Yeah.
Okay, are there any other questions for Justin regarding his narrative or his budget presentation from the Budget Committee?
Not for me, thank you.
If not, I will open up the public hearing. So the public hearing is now open at 11:23. Is there any public hearing from anybody online? Because I don't think we have any other public in this room. So any public online that would like to ask, have any comments?
No public online either. Just Mary Faith.
I saw a bunch of names up there,
Well,
maybe
those
the,
are others that were in the invitation,
oh, okay.
but they aren't with us here.
Then I will close the public hearing at 11:24. Are there any more discussions regarding the budget for the solid waste district? If not, I would be looking for a motion to approve the budget and for the $1 per month for solid waste service fee for developed property.
Madam Chair, I would move to approve the budget and the $1 per month solid waste service fee for developed property.
It's been moved.
I will second.
It's been moved and second. Is there any more discussion? All those in favor say aye.
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 Aye. All opposed? Motion passes. Good job, and thank you for all the hard work that you're doing.
Thank you. Thank you for being here.
Good
Thank
job,
you, everybody.
Justin.
And I guess we.
Yeah,
just
thank
adjourn
you,
the-
Justin.
So I'll turn this back over, I guess, to Commissioner Bell. To adjourn.
I don't know that we have to, but thank you. And I'd just like to thank Justin for your first budget. You know, it's a steep learning curve and you've done a wonderful job and we're really glad you're in the role. So thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate all your support. Commissioners, Leanne, Treasurer, Sean, thank you for all your support as I'm learning. And it's been going well. Happy for the future and excited for the new fiscal year. Thank
So
you.
I think this is my third year on the Solid Waste Budget Committee and my term is up. So you'll.
You're never coming back.
I would say you probably won't invite me back after this day, so. Thank you. Meeting adjourned.
Thank you. Leanne, are you willing to continue?
Oh, I'm not sure right now. I'm learning
Okay.
to say no at this point.
Okay. All right. We'll think about it.
We'll see if you learn or not.
I know it.
It doesn't pay
Yeah.
very well.
Yeah.
None of these.
I appreciate that you're hardly retired. Yeah.
When I became mayor, my husband thought it was a paid position. I'm like,
Oh.
no.
No, I've just traded a paid for an unpaid.
That's right.
Thank you, Leanne.
You're welcome. No, I probably know this budget probably better than most of you.
Yeah.